In this episode, I'm going to be showing you how to do a partial water change on your tadpole tank, and I've set up a second tank, and I'm going to be taking some of the tadpoles from the original tank, putting them into the second one to give them a bit more space. Welcome to Frogwatch. Now, I've had these tadpoles for around 6 weeks, and as of yet, I've not done a single water change. People ask me how often should you do it. To be honest with you, the water is still pretty clear. All the green and everything is from the algae which is growing on the sides of the tank and the stones. The water itself is still pretty clear, but just because the water is clear, you can't tell the chemical composition by looking at it. So I think it is about time we give it some change. You can also see that the water has dropped significantly, has evaporated over time, so we definitely need to put some fresh water in there. The process is pretty simple. I'm going to remove some of this water, and I'm actually going to put some of the water from this tank into the new tank. I don't think it needs to be done, but what I want to do is try and preserve some of the biome that we've got set up in here, some of the algae and some of the daphnia that I've got swimming around in here. I'm going to try and preserve that and put it into the new tank to kind of just get the tank started with its kind of ecosystem, if you like. As I say, I don't think it's necessary, but I'm going to do it anyway and try and preserve what I've got. So we remove some of the water, and then all we're going to do is replace it with fresh water. Now I'm going to use tap water because I don't have any rainwater or pond water or anything sort of ready to go. So if you use tap water, make sure you treat it to get rid of the chlorine, because the chlorine will kill the tadpoles. This water in here is tap water, but I have already treated it with tap safe, so that the chlorine should be gone and it should be perfectly safe to do so. I've been leaving it here a little while. This water is a little bit colder than what they're used to, so I don't want to give them too much of a temperature shock. So if you do this, leave your tank sort of set up and waiting for the temperature to reach room temperature, so there's not too much of a shock when you do transfer them. So that's what we're going to be doing. And then as I transfer some of the water over, I'll probably try and catch some of the tadpoles to move over into the new tank. And if not, I've got a net, I can grab some and put some into the new tank. I think we just need to go on with it.
At this stage, you may notice that some of your tadpoles are much bigger than others. This is perfectly normal. Tadpoles actually release a hormone into the water that inhibits the growth of other tadpoles. This ensures the bigger tadpoles are able to outcompete the smaller ones for food. It's a case of get big, stay big, and make sure your rivals don't challenge you. It doesn't affect the smaller tadpoles except to slow down their growth. They'll still fully develop. You can mitigate this effect somewhat by more frequent water changes, which removes more of this hormone.
Okay, now you'll notice I don't have any plants in the new one. I haven't been able to get to the shop to get any more, so for now I'm going to take one of the plants from the old tank to put into the new one, and then when I get the next opportunity I'll go to the shop and I'll get some more plants to fill them back up again. So I'm going to take one of those, and you'll also notice I only managed to get one tadpole in the transfer of water, so I'm going to have to get my net out and try and catch some of the tadpoles and get them transferred across.
In previous years, when transferring tadpoles from one tank to another, I've struggled to catch them using something like a jug or a jar, and there's always someone in the comments telling me to get a net and make it easy on myself. Well, this year I've got one. However, it didn't make it much easier, to be honest.
Okay, so just a quick recap. Basically, the process is very simple. Remove some of the water. You can either discard it, or like me, if you're setting up a second tank, put it into the second tank. And then you just fill it back up to the top with fresh water. Rainwater is ideal. Pond water if you have access to it. But if you use tap water, make sure you treat it to get rid of the chlorine, because chlorine will kill the tadpoles. And that's really all you need to do. How often do you do it? Well, as I say, I've had these 6 weeks, and it's the first time I've done it, and I may not even do it again in the time that I have them. What I will probably do is, as the water level drops, as the water naturally evaporates over time, I fill it back up with fresh water, and that is mostly what I do. I don't do a partial water change all that often, maybe every 4 weeks or so. But that's pretty much it. So I think after this traumatic experience, We'll let them settle in for a bit. You may notice that if you do transfer tadpoles from one tank to another or introduce them to a new tank, they may sink down to the bottom and just rest for a little while, not moving. It can look quite worrying, but it's nothing to worry about. It's just them getting over the shock of being caught and moved into different water. It's all a bit of a shock for them, and they take a little while to kind of just adjust to it. But after about 10 minutes or so, they'll be back up and swimming around as per normal. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this week. Hopefully I'll find a weekend at some point where it's not raining and I can actually take my camera outside and we can go and look at the ponds and do a bit of pond dipping or something. I really want to do that, but it's just been raining all weekend and I haven't been able to get outside. My camera's not waterproof. Nothing I can do, unfortunately, but as soon as nice weather gets here, eventually we'll get outside and we'll get some great wildlife videos done. So join me back for that. Hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, if you have questions, leave them down in the comment section and I'll answer them. I'm always happy to answer your questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.